Semper Fi, everyone. Charlie back yet again with another hip pocket class. Now, although this equipment is actually placed on the front of my body, it should be on my back. This is actually the Marine Corps' version of their haversack, and there's a few items that are in this that the Marines would carry with them at all points in time, but then you could actually have a larger transport pack whenever you're going on a deployment overseas, or if you're changing location, you'd have more equipment to carry with you. But this is a simple version of something that you would carry into combat on a day-to-day basis as just a simple means of living away from home. Probably the most notable here is this M1905 bayonet. This is actually a Springfield Armory 1908 issued model. The basic idea of this bayonet is 16 inches of cold steel. You'd attach this on the end of your rifle, and if you run out of ammunition or if you're dealing with some close quarter combat, this will become a very close friend. Well, for the Marine using it, not for the enemy who are facing it as a German soldier. Actually, another piece of equipment that would sometimes often find itself used in more than one means during combat would actually be your M1910 shovel here. A lot of Marines and other soldiers would actually sharpen the edges of this. It helps with digging, but again, if you have to use this as a weapon, it gives a little bit more of a beating whenever you're dealing with that close quarter combat. But its primary use was for digging for a fighting position, sometimes with the trenches, although there were bigger shovels and bigger pieces of equipment to do a lot of that. And the Marines in the United States Army showed up much later in the war from what the British, the French, and the Germans and other units had. So to some degree they were doing a lot of digging, but not nearly as much as people have been there much longer. Beneath this, or I should say over top of this, would actually be your meat can pouch. Now this meat can is nothing, really anything different than a simple mess kit. I actually have some items in here that I can show you that wouldn't necessarily be stored in it for the use of chow whenever you're eating, but it's a nice way to keep things compact and a little bit quieter on a march. There would actually be some leather sheaths inside for your knife, and then your spoon and your fork, and of course, like the Marine Corps does with its Eagle, Globe, and Anchor, they have to make sure they put a little USMC on just about everything that they can. Now, this meat can pouch, you'd have a, this mess kit. Within the meat can pouch, you'd have a lid, and then your main pot, and then a nice long handle. So you could actually cook this over a fire, or as you're marching through a chow line, you would just hold this out and you get whatever hot or cold ration that you have for the day. Now most of what I have in here is actually just some underwear, so I won't show anybody that, but it is Marine Corps issued. It's white because of the Navy, being that the Marine Corps is a department of the Navy. Sometimes they get a lot of the same equipment or uniforms that the Navy does, but in other ways the Marine Corps is pretty good at having their own things. I have a little tin can here with some camphor ice. It's kind of like a Vaseline that you can put on chapped lips, and a little handkerchief as well. A little pack of tooth powder that before you'd have tubes of toothpaste, that this little powder, you'd apply some water to it. It'd have mint, baking soda, some little shards of glass actually that would help to kind of clean your teeth. And of course, to go along with it, you'd have your toothbrush as well. But Marines, a lot of times, just like pretty much in any war, that you're not going to have a lot of time to stay clean. So you would also have some soap, a towel, a little huck towel, but more often than not, you probably were using that water, if it was clean at least, a nice potable water, as a means for filling up your canteen instead of worrying about bathing. And I've actually read of accounts of Marines who, you know, as little as 10 days, that they might not remove their shoes from their feet for maybe no more than 15 minutes. So again, you're donning this uniform most of the time, and you don't really get a chance to take it off unless you're in the rear with the gear and all those MEFs, REMA, let's see, REMFs. Yeah, there we go. But the interesting thing about this pack, this haversack, it's not much different than the Army's version, although it doesn't have a big US stamped on it. The Marine Corps later on would start stamping a lot of things USMC, much like those utensils that I just showed you. But the durability, the weaving, very similar to what the Army had issue. It's just came from a different manufacturer through your quartermaster. As I talk in an older video of mine where I explain how this pack operates, there's actually not just like one big pouch where you would remove a lid from the top. There's actually some flaps and some straps and buckles that you had to pack it a specific way in order to carry it. And then you actually, sometimes it was a little tricky to just remove one item without kind of undoing more of the pack. But you get used to it over time, and you can kind of find some sneaky ways of how to pack it and make it a little bit easier to get some quick access to some things. But you'd have your cans of food if you were resupplied. You might carry a blanket, maybe a poncho if you were lucky enough to keep yourself warm and dry during those rainy times. But a lot of guys would carry some personal items on top of that. Maybe if you were lucky, it's a change of socks and some undergarments. But for the most part, ounces equal pounds, so you want to keep this pack as light as possible when you're on those hikes if you don't have to carry as much whenever you get into combat. But as always, I hope you enjoyed this. Stay safe, stay salty, Semper Fi, and carry on.